We are looking at the plist. Every application is a file called -infolist.plist, and it has then the prefix with by the name of your application, and then afterwards always -info.plist. It has a number of entries in there, key and value. When your application runs, it loads them and uses them. There are some already entered settings in there, and they are mandatory. There are some optional settings. They're all listed in the documentation. Unless you know they are there, they are hidden. To understand them is very important. The basic operation is that you click on the plus sign to add any in it. You see a pop-up. You select one of those and then select a value for it. To get rid of it, you click on the plus sign. Of course, you don't want to get rid of the mandatory ones. Um, right click it and you can say show raw key values. Now you see the raw key values in there. Behind the scene it's an XML file, but it has a nice editor to help you. You can add your own plist file for your own use, and it is file new resource property list, and then you can add things that you want to use in your application. Now we look at the core data editor, which is kind of database. Even if you don't know the relational database in detail, if somebody was to design it for you and say, okay, here are the entities, these are the attributes, and these are the relationships between entities, can you go and design that and create them in the Xcode for me? So you want to be able to do that. So we look at that editor. So first of all, we need a project that has core data enabled in it. So let's do that. File, new project. We've been working with single view application and it does not have that. Empty application, it does. So I'm going to call it my core data tutorial 1. And you see this has the option of core data enabled. It's checked. Next, create. Here we go. This is the one that has the core data. Now, some of the things to look at. This is the core data editor. It has some of the buttons to add your entity and attributes. For example, here are a couple of good ones. This is the editor, and this is the looking at the graphical style. It's called the graph view, and this is the editor view. The other option of interest is add entity. So let's say, for example, you need customer and sales. So I'm gonna go add an entity, customers. I'm gonna call it customers. Now customers should have some attributes like first name, last name. That's done over here. Add an attribute, first name, what type it is, string, float, integer and stuff. Another attribute, last name. See how the naming convention is the first one needs to be lowercase. If it's not, it'll throw an error. Also a string. Let's add another entity. Call it sales. Add attribute to this entity. We're gonna call it description. It's going to be a string. See how I said that? It should be a lowercase. Through another error. Okay, so description is already a method in it. So I'm gonna call it, item description. Description is already a method or property defined within the CocoaTouch library. So that's another issue. I'm glad it came up. So they may be name clashes, so you have to be careful. It's going to be a string, and let's add another entity, maybe called price, and this time it'll be an integer 16, for example, or I should say decimal, or double. Now here we go. Now we want to define a relationship between these two, so between customer and sales. So I'm going to select customer, and you see I'm going to click on relationships and add a relationship right there. I'm going to call it customer sales destination. You see destination is the other table. So now I have a relationship. Customer table has a relationship with sales table. Inverse relationship means sales is connected back to customers or not. Let's just go with inverse. If I look at the style now, I can drag these around, and now I can see like a graphical interface that we have a customers. These are the attributes, sales, and they are connected. Customers is connected to sales, arrowhead. If I had selected inverse, there would be another arrow back. So if I had a sales item, I could find out what who the customer is. Right now, if I have a customer, I can only find out what the sales for that customer are. So that's what the inverse or not having an inverse means. Now some of the buttons are not here, and they are under the editor. For example, add fetch request, add configuration. See if there is no option here for adding a fetch request. It's up there in the editor. So that's the other editor.